All right, good night, good night, good night. Welcome to another episode of Our Purpose Pod. As you know, I am your host, The Voice. Tonight, uh, have a basketball stuff on with me tonight as we dive into the NBA Finals. We want to talk about the Boston Celtics. We want to talk about Dallas Mavericks, and we're also going to touch on women's basketball. We want to talk about Caitlin Clark, being excluded from the USA basketball squad. Without further ado, I'll go ahead. I'll introduce Steele as we talk some basketball tonight. What's going on, boss?
Not too bad, How you doing? How you doing?
Man, doing good, doing good. So
That's good.
let's just jump right into it, boss. Your Boston Celtics, commanding performance in game one. Uh,
hmm
Game two is indeed tomorrow, and I'll start with the first question, and obviously the question that will be asked all around: is tomorrow a must-win for the Dallas Mavericks?
I would say this. Not, of course, the series is not over. It's best of four. You can even look at the numbers of what happens when teams go up two in the finals, and it will be an overwhelmingly high number in terms of the teams who go up two or go on to win the finals. But I won't even go there. It's a must win from the fact that you would much rather go home with home court, so that means getting at least a win on the road, and then you have two games at your home, at your home arena, as opposed to going on 0-2. You feel like you don't play your best, and then you'll really be behind the eight ball. So I think it's a must win in terms of releasing the pressure that's building. Because it's one game, you can look at it. What, it's one game, we'll be fine. But if you lose two games now, then it's like, all right, how do different players start to react, especially players who haven't been this far before? You're
Mhm.
down 0-2, they're like, all right, So I
So,
do think it's a must win from that standpoint.
so let me ask you. You've been a Boston Celtics fan for some time, so I'm not going to say you're a Wagons, right? So you've been a fan. You've been a fan for some time.
Yeah.
But we have seen the Boston Celtics.
hmm
Even in this playoff run against Indiana,
hmm
go up 2-0, or even have a chance in game two. Indiana have a chance to win that game. Indiana
hmm
have a chance to win both game three and game four at Indiana, and
hmm
Boston find a way to pull it out. It is said that Boston is a little roller coaster team.
hmm
What would be, if you were the coach of the Boston Celtics? What would be your message to the team with an opportunity to go up 2-0, being that they were in the finals, against Golden State, and what they would have learned from that?
Um, I would just tell them it's plain and simple. Do you want it to be a repeat of 2020-22, or do you not want it to be a repeat? Simple as that. If you want it to be a repeat, then you can go out there and play however you want and see what happens. If you don't want it to be a repeat, then you go out there, not even try to replicate game one, because I believe game one there's stuff they could have done differently
Yeah.
in terms of less turnover, specifically Tatum. I'm not trying to bag on him, but I feel like he had some uncharacteristic turnovers, especially with how he's been passing the ball these playoffs. When I saw six through three quarters, I was like, because I'm watching it and I'm like, these are uncharacteristic based on how he's been passing the ball, not only this season, but in the playoffs. So I would tell them, hey, let's keep the turnovers to under 12, because they were one of the better teams in terms of not turning the ball over all year. So I tell them, replicate game one, clean that up, and also try to get more drives and paint touches, because I feel that Kid will try to make an adjustment right there in terms of trying to minimize the amount of 3-point attempts. So I
Mm-hmm.
will tell them we'll have counters prepared for that, and of course I'm sure he'll walk through the counters with them, of course. But my message to them would really just be: do you want to repeat? And if you don't want to repeat, play like you don't want a repeat of 2022.
All right. So CC saying I think it's a must win due to not trying to force things in game three. The Celtics are there to be got. So if you can get game two, it will get to them. To that you say what to you? Because Boston are your team. So to
Yeah.
that you say what?
I would just lean on their road record the last 2 years. Because it's crazy because they have been one of the better home teams the last 2 3 years, and then they get to the playoffs and they'll drop games at home, and you're like, why are they dropping this game at home? And then you see them go on the road where you would expect even good teams to not play as well as home. They've been better on the road the last 2 3 years. I believe their record since 21-22 on the road is something like 19-7 or something like that.
Mhm.
So I don't think it will get to them from the standpoint of, oh, we're going on the road, we have to win on the road. I do think that there will be a little doubt creeping in that, oh, we were 1-1 after 2 games in 2022. So I do think it will be in the back of their head, but I don't think it will throw them off their game so much because they will tell themselves if they do lose tomorrow that, hey, we've been winning on the road all playoffs. I don't think they've lost on the road all playoffs, so they'll be like, we're unbeaten on the road in the playoffs. We have a good road playoff record the last few seasons. So I don't think it will, get to them that much, but I do think it will still be lingering in the back of their head that, hey, can't let it steamroll.
All right. So this is my take on the finals, right? And
Yeah.
I was in and out watching game one, but I did watch it over, on recording. And
Hmm.
my first takeaway was I believe Dallas was treating, and I'm not minimizing what the Celtics did, right? Because if
Hmm.
a team come out at home and blitz you like that, it's hard for you to come back. And
Yeah.
to Dallas' credit, they came back within 8. But I
Hmm.
think they used all their energy to come back within 8, and then Celtics bring it back up to 22. But when I'm looking at Kyrie Irving
Hmm.
cannot 12.6 for 19, 0 for 6 from 3, just cannot happen. It cannot happen. And persons were saying, oh, the boos were getting to him, or the
Hmm.
fans were loud. I don't know. I just want to chalk it up as a bad game. He
Yeah.
often talks about the first game being a feel-out game. I think
Hmm.
he will be much better in game 2. And then
Yeah.
I look at Luka, 1 assist. Remember, this guy is the one leading the whole NBA in points, assists, rebounds. So to have 1 assist, I think is very uncharacteristic. So I don't think that will happen again.
Hmm.
But then I look at Kristaps, and I'm saying, I'm not saying Kristaps is not a baller, but
Hmm.
the way he came out in game 1 after missing 38 days without playing basketball, whatever it was, something around there, so 3,
Yeah.
4 weeks, 5 weeks without playing
Hmm.
basketball.
Yeah.
I can't see a repeat of that for the whole entire series. I don't think that's something that he can consistently do. He'll play good basketball. I think Celtics as a whole is a great unit, is a great team. I
Yeah.
think Luka is great enough to get one game,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And if that one game is tomorrow, then going back to Dallas, they don't have something, they don't have confidence. And there's always a saying that said the role players play better at home,
At
right?
home. Hmm.
But
Yeah.
the Celtics, I was looking up a stat earlier, and it was saying that the Celtics is the first team in NBA history to have 7 players make 2+3s, right? So if
Yeah.
Dallas want to have any opportunity to even smell a game in this series, you have to defend the 3-point line. Celtics don't want no lob and no layup. Obviously, if you're giving it to them, they'll take it. But the
Hmm.
way how they play basketball, they want their 3-point shots. They want the
Yeah.
3-point shots. And
That's
I
it.
think that's a big thing that, obviously Jason Kidd is an experienced campaigner, so I think he will make adjustments. But I also think Celtics will make adjustments too, right? So it's always going to be a chess game. I have Mavs in 5 or 6, depending on tomorrow, or maybe we'll go to
Yeah.
6. But that's
Yeah.
where I have the Mavs.
Hmm.
So I want to ask you a question.
Hmm.
So Jason Kidd now, obviously it's time to play some mind games, right? So Jason Kidd came out and said they asked him about Jaylen Brown, and he was like, "Listen, Jaylen Brown is the best player on the team, all right?"
Hmm.
And Jason Tatum come out and say they have been trying to get us against each other for the longest, and it's not working, all
Yeah.
right? But remember, Jaylen Brown is the one who got paid the
Hmm.
385 million. Tatum
Hmm.
is next in line to be paid right now.
Hmm.
Do you believe, just your heart to heart,
Yeah.
do you believe there's anything in there with a Tatum said? boy with the Eastern Conference, MVP, and no,
Yeah,
I'm at the talk of the town. Do you think Jason Tatum is going to come out in game two with some fire in him belly?
I do think he will come out to prove a point, but I don't think it will be at the expense of the team. Just based on how I've watched him play out of the years. I've seen him play with, extra passion. Like if a ref, gives him a weak technical, you'll see his demeanor change to be a bit more demonstrative, so to speak. Or if he gets into it with a player once in a blue moon, because I know he's not really one of those guys who will, if a player comes up to him, he will, talk back, but he's not someone who really seeks that kind of stuff out. So I do think he will try to prove a point, but within the flow of the game, because I don't think that I've ever seen him hijack a game trying to prove a point. I know sometimes players will come out and be like, all right, I'm getting up 10, 12 shots within the first 14, 15 minutes a game time to see what happens. I don't think he's going to, you know, prove a point at the expense of the team, but I do think he's going to come out and be like, all right, you say what he said. But I do it is mind games. We all know it's just mind games because we see how, I'm not even trying to discredit Jalen, but we do see how Kid runs coverages versus Jalen versus how he runs it versus Jason. If he
Mm-hmm.
believed that, he would be sending two at him when he has the ball. He would send two, have one at the nail, and have one sitting at the rim waiting for him. So, you know, I do think he will come on with a bit more fire, and you might be like, you know what? Do you need any much? Do you need any more motivation than winning it all?
Mm-hmm.
Not really, but I do think that he will come up with uh, bit more fire in his belly, so to speak, but not at the expense of hijacking the offense and the team itself. So that's why I think it'll play out.
So CC is saying the last three quarters of game one, I
Hmm.
wouldn't say the last three, but probably the last two. But the last three quarters of game one gives Mavs hope. Mavs players need to hit shots. It was 9-23, a 6-1 for the Mavs. Those are the key to this series. To that you say what?
I agree. For the key in terms of the keys for the series, because what made it so hard for Luca to get assist opportunities, you could just chalk it up to guys like hitting shots, but it wasn't even just that.
Mm-hmm.
It was the passing angles that the Celtics were willing to give versus the ones they weren't willing to give. For instance, we know that Luca loves to get his assists from the corner threes. He
Yeah,
loves to throw the lobs to the bigs. Celtics were like, all right, cool. If you're driving to the lane, we'll bring the big up, but chances are he's not going to come up and bring a late help.
yeah.
Chances are he's going to just trust the primary defender that's guarding you and just peel off to prevent the lob. Also, what we're going to do, we're not going to bring the defender in from the perimeter to make him kind of be like in the nail position. We're going to leave him there, kind of like make you think he's coming down so he can get the corner assist, but we're not going to give it up. No, I do think that Dallas will try to tweak that, but what the Celtics showed in game one is that we're fine with you kicking it back to the top of the break
Mm-hmm.
because PJ and Derrick Jones, they won't readily take those even if they're open. They much rather the corners for a reason. I
Mm-hmm.
believe the start for Derrick Jones Jr. coming into the finals was what 17 or 37 from the corner. That's like a high percent, really high
Yeah,
percentage, like for
that's like 40 something percent.
like 44 thereabout, yeah.
Yeah.
And PJ, I believe he had the third most corner makes in a playoff run in the last 25 years from the corner, not just threes, from the corner.
Yep.
So it's always like, all right, cool. We take away the corners, we'll take the lobs. Like, yeah, you'll get passes off to the bigs, but we'll make it be that they have to catch and then go up. And we've seen in the playoffs that Dallas bigs are the best with their hands when unless it's like making a short roll pass or going up for a lob. If they have to catch it, come down, and then make a move, it's kind of easier for the defense. So I think that the Celtics show that they're willing to take the corners away, take the lob passes away. You can kick it back behind you. You can kick it even to the wing, to like right here, to the wing of the 3-point line. But we won't give it the corners readily. We won't give it the lobs. So now it's a case of seeing how Jason Kidd, not only Jason Kidd, but also how Luca tries to manipulate that defense to get the looks that they want on offense.
So I'm looking, and first quarter, Celtics
Mhm,
37, Mavs 20.
mhm.
Second quarter, Celtics 26, Mavs 22. Third quarter, Mavs 24, Celtics 23. Fourth quarter, Mavs 23, Celtics 21. But, and this is why I'm not really a numbers guy to that. I need some more than numbers because a lot of those minutes, some garbage time,
Jaden
all this
Hardy was doing what he wanted the last 4 minutes of the game.
yeah.
So
So the
yeah.
scrubs, the Tim Hardaways of the world, and those kind of guys. But let's say let's do a hypothetical. Let's
Mhm.
say the series is 1-1 after tomorrow.
Yeah.
What's the feeling like as a Celtic fan? Is it here we go again? Because remember, Dallas is really good at home.
Mhm.
Really, really good at home. I think they only lost. I think they lost what? No, they lost two games at home in the playoffs. One to OKC and one to the Timberwolves, right?
Mhm.
But going 1-1, giving the Mavericks some kind of confidence to go home. Would you feel confident that the Celtics still would be able to win the series if that happens?
Yeah, I do think so. Because at the end of the day, they still have 3 more games at home, but also their road record that I alluded to. Not just this season, the fact that they're undefeated at home in the playoffs, but the last couple seasons in the playoffs, they have a better record on the road than they do at home.
On the road, yeah.
Yeah, so of course you'll be upset because your team lose. You're going to be upset. That goes without saying. But I
Mm.
wouldn't be like fretting and be overly worried if they lose tomorrow, just because you have the not really the not numbers per se, but you have the what's the word? You have the evidence to lean on that they're a good road team in the playoffs. So that's why I wouldn't be even with the fact that Dallas have been very good at home.
Mhm.
Um, that they've
So,
been very good at home. I wouldn't be that worried.
so let me ask you this,
Uh-huh.
and I'm kind of jumping the gun here, and we'll talk about it as we do more podcasts and stuff. But Celtics lose this series. Let's say Celtics lose the finals.
Hmm.
What happens to the organization? Do we have to find a way? All right, because again, remember, if you already paid Jalen Brown, if you
Hmm.
pay Tatum and Brown, and remember you already paid Drew Holiday too,
Yeah.
right? So now we're talking about luxury tax business,
Hmm.
right? How would you handle the team? How would you handle the team should the Celtics lose the series? Is it that the coach has to go? Is it
Hmm.
that the front staff has to go? Is it that we have to probably trade for another star and
Hmm.
get rid of one of our stars? Though, what's the direction of the Celtics should they lose the series?
Hmm. I think that if they lose this series, there will be some changes in some shape or form. I don't
That
think I don't think it will be, I don't think the move will necessarily be on the players in the sense of you move one of Jalen or Jason. I do think you keep them together because what's the alternative out there?
Donovan Mitchell.
I mean, you you trade Spider, but you have to be sure that you're extending him if you do trade for him. For
Hmm.
instance, say you
Absolutely.
say you decide to trade Jalen and some pieces for him. Are you sure Donovan is extending? You have to be sure about that.
Hmm.
So you're not trading for Zach Levine. I mean, I think Zach Levine is very good, but he's not the defender that any of those guys are. Plus, he's older than them. That's the other thing you have to factor in the age. I mean, yeah, it would be disappointed that they're 0-2 in the finals, but when you take a step back and let it settle a bit, you'll be like, you know what? The alternatives are not really better when you think about it, and they're still 26 and 27. No, I do think that there's a potential that Derek will leave if that
Derek White.
happens. Yeah, that he would leave because he is going to get paid. And I do think that if he wins with them, he'll be a little bit more incentivized rather to take probably a little bit less, just like Drew did, just like Christoph did. And I think maybe Jason will do the same. Of course, he's going to get a max contract, or probably not as much, probably just a little bit more than Jalen is what he'll accept, so they can keep Derek and also keep some of the bench pieces around. But I do think that if they go down 0-2 in finals between 22 and 24, I do think that Derek will be more inclined to seek um his full due in terms of his contract elsewhere. Also, I do think they evaluate Joe losing. Um, not Joe losing, moving Joe. I mean, they will still try to see who is out there, and they probably won't find a better option. But you have to evaluate that because last year will be held against him. Even though you could argue that no one could foresee Brogdon's shooting elbow becoming fall off the bone ribs in the middle of the series, or Jalen and Marcus having the worst stretch of their postseason career together,
Uh-huh.
and then Jason, who never gets hurt, got hurt the open virtually the opening play of Game 7. So yes, you can't foresee those things happening, but that would still get held against him. So you'd have the failure of last year plus this year. You have to evaluate it.
Got to. And
Yeah.
here is Godwin Coker. I'm sorry if I
Hmm.
mispronounce it. God forbid we lose, and I don't see that happening. I do, but but I don't see them changing the team at all. LOL. I think it will just rush the. I think it will just rush the role players possibly leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think so. Like when I talk about leaving, right?
Hmm.
Honestly, I don't even view like a Pritchard or a Hauser. Like, but I don't
Hmm.
really treat those as big people leaving. When I'm talking about leaving, I'm talking about the Drew Holidays. I'm talking about the Derek Whites, the Chris Stapps. I think Al Harford, obviously, I think he's on his last legs right now. I think anything he's gonna do, I retire, right? Because he left the Celtics before. I will go ahead.
Sorry to cut you, but I think that Al is more likely to come back if they win as opposed to if they lose.
Yeah,
Because if they lose, it's going to be like, why am I putting my body through this to come back? As
absolutely.
opposed to if he wins, it would be good to go with a ring. But I do see him being more incentivized to be like, you know what, I'll come back for another year if they win.
Yeah.
So I agree there for sure.
Yeah, so for me, right? So the key is so let's talk about before we go ahead and talk about Caitlin, right?
Hmm.
Let's talk about so I'll talk about the keys, what I believe for the Mavs, and you can tell me the keys for the Celtics. Obviously,
Okay.
I think one of the big keys for the Mavs is keep the threes at a minimum, right? Keep listen, Al's house is already for sale. I do see him staying if we win though. Yeah. Listen, winning always make things a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Losing, going through that whole summer, and then knowing that you have to go through training camp again and put yourself through 82-game season.
At 38.
And listen, nothing is guaranteed.
Yeah.
You already know this. Remember, Giannis was hurt, Dame was hurt, and I'm not saying Milwaukee is a better team, but stuff
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Like for majority of the season, Celtics was healthy, barring Kristaps, but he's always hurt,
Hmm.
right? So
And some
barring
of it
him,
was injury management, but still, he's still always hurt. That
yes,
which is why they had the injury management in place.
exactly.
So
So now coming back next year, we don't know where Donovan Mitchell going to go. Knicks have a ton of money. They can get they're talking about Kevin Durant over there. So there's a bunch of stuff happening over there in the East that Celtics might want to just grab a ring. Just grab a ring right now,
but
while it's
but
there.
also but the thing with Al knows it better than anyone because didn't he pass John Stockton for most games played in the playoffs without a ring? So he knows full well
Yeah,
that it's not promise. But also it's Brad Stevens. No one knows what Brad is doing.
yeah,
Not even Celtics fans who are fully tapped into the team. No one knew when he was trading back for Al until it happened. No one knew about Derek White. No
yeah,
one knew about throwing away Marcus till it happened and it
yeah.
sent the fan base into turmoil.
As
You
a,
just don't know what Brad is doing.
as a matter of
So
fact, let's talk about that.
yeah.
Let's talk about that because there's a thing that is being said in basketball that you need a heart and soul of the team,
Hmm.
right? It's like you need a heart and soul. How can you? And then when they traded Marcus Smart, there was a big uproar, right? And I'm
Hmm.
telling you, I don't know if Celtics would have made it the finals if it was Marcus Smart there. I don't know. I don't know because again, all right. So
Yeah.
they trade away Marcus Smart, but then Derek White does so much. Drew Holiday, like the team just looks so cohesive. I'm not saying it wasn't cohesive with Marcus, but you know Marcus a little hot-headed. You know him can get a little hot-headed.
Can
Now it's
hijack the offense a little bit and be like Marcus, we love you when you make the shots when you hijack the offense. When you hijack and you miss every single one of them, that's the problem we have. You get what I'm saying? But I get yeah. Go ahead.
exactly. So you know, I'm looking at the trade that Brad Stevens make. And listen, I know it must have been hard to make a trade like that, but
Yeah,
again, this is why they get the big bucks. This is why they get the millions and millions of dollars because again, it's not about personal relationships; it's about fit, right?
yeah,
And when you can get to assemble a team of this magnitude, listen, I've never seen a team out there where you can't say, okay, we're going to switch. We're going to switch this person. We're going to switch that person. Everybody is switch and can defend. It's not like when they can pick. It's not like when they can pick and roll and say, okay, I want to get Steph Curry in the pick and roll. You
yeah.
know, I want to get an old Klay Thompson in the pick and roll. Now, if you pick and roll, if you get Drew, if you get Derek White, if you get Jalen Brown, if you get Jason Tatum, it's problems all around.
Exactly. And even Kristaps because they will pre-switch to get Kristaps out of the pick and roll. And even if he's in the pick and roll, you'll be like, you know what, we live with it. And also why Al will fare better throughout the series, I feel, when he gets switched onto Kyrie and Luca is that they're sudden, they're good at change of direction, but they're not fast per se. You
Yeah.
think of a Garland and a Mitchell, they're just like this. Even Tyrese to an extent, like this, like speed. I think that's why. I mean, yeah, it's only one game, but I think that's why they will be fine when I'll get switched onto them because they're a bit more methodical in how they set up their isolation moves. So they're both the same play. They're both the same pace. So,
So
but the heart and soul point that you made earlier, I think that whilst it hurt the fan base and also it must have hurt Brad because Brad has been with Marcus from because they came in at the same time, right?
yep, yep.
So, but I think he could see it in Jalen being a bit more of that heart and soul, being a bit more vocal, being the one to lead the team more. I do believe that both guys are leaders, but you have guys who are just more vocal than others. That's just how it is, and you have seen it the last couple of years. Jalen be that vocal leader for the team that Marcus was. So I
Absolutely.
do think, yeah,
So when I talk, so let me go back to keys of the game. So obviously, I think that the
yeah,
Mavs, and it goes without saying, Celtics they can't have 7 players making 2 or more threes. Like if you have that, might as well we get the brooms out and just have the fat lady start singing because the series is over,
yeah,
right? Obviously, I think Kyrie has to play better. He just has to play better. Again, 12.6 of 9 shooting, over 5 from three, minus 20 on the court. That just not gonna cut it, right? And I think Luca, we already know that Luca will get his points, but he has to get everybody involved. Have to
yeah,
get the Gaffords involved. Have to get the Lively involved. And I know that Celtics is looking out for the lobs, right? They're looking out for the lobs because those are the easy buckets. But you have to find a way to put those guys in positions to be great. Give those guys confidence. Because if those guys are just defending, I think PJ Washington, he went 5 of 11 from the field. I think he had 14 points or whatever. But it was such an ineffective 14 points,
yeah,
right? Where I'm looking and I'm saying I wouldn't even know him at 14. I think he had 4, right? Because of how ineffective it was. And again, I'm not trying to overreact to one game because they lost game 1 against the Clippers. They lost game 1 by 20 against OKC. They lost game 1 by a lot against the Clippers as well. And they did come back and win both series. But again, I think it's a different dog in this fight.
yeah,
The Clippers only have an inconsistent Paul George, a 90-year-old PJ Tucker. So like, looking at that, Boston is young, they're hungry, they're healthy, they're ready to go. So I just think, the superstars have to play like superstars and they have to set the tone. From the tip, they have to be going. They can't have Boston leading by 17 at the end of the first quarter at home with that crowd. they're going to ride that crowd. Your job is to silence the crowd from ball one. Like
Yeah.
you see, like what Luca did in Minnesota in Game
Hmm.
Six. Same thing. You have to do. Him just have to
Yeah.
come out and just silence the crowd. And I think the Dallas Mavericks would have better results.
Yeah. I think the key. Well, I'm going to touch on two things quickly before you say it.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier about Kyrie. I think Kyrie needs to be honest with himself because he said he's not the person that he was. That's great and all. I do think the Bulls get to him from this standpoint.
All
He
right.
tries to prove a point. You know, like when someone is doing,
Explain.
like you're trying to shut up the crowd a little bit too much based
Mm-hmm.
on the shots. Because we know that Kyrie is a tough shot taker and maker, but we do know that he much rather to get himself going first, then he'll take those shots. What I've noticed when he's in Boston is that he will try to do a little bit too much. Not saying that he can't do it, because we know about his handles and his shot making, and we know that for him it's way easier than the average player. But if you look through some of his number against Boston the last 10 games, especially the ones in Boston, he has outside of the since the playoffs in Boston, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, outside of game one where he was really hot that game, he's only made 1 3 in Boston. No,
Damn.
2 3s in Boston since then.
Damn. That's when he was playing for the Nets, right?
Yeah, from the Nets and even with the Mavericks now. He's on outside of that game one in 2022 where that game was close and then Tatum had the layup to win it. Outside that game where he had 6 3s, he's only had 2 3s against Boston in Boston.
Damn.
That's more than just Boston having the size to throw at him, be it the guards or even the wings. That's more than just that. I
Absolutely.
feel that's because we know Kyrie can shoot the three, but he's not going to be taking 7 8 a game. You get so I do think that on the Kyrie point, he has to be honest with himself and kind of not try to shut them up too much. Just play your game. That's the way you shut them up. Play your game and let things come to you. Don't come to you. Don't really force it. So that's on the point of what you were saying earlier about the Bulls with Kyrie. But the keys for the game for Boston, turnovers, because that's low key. It hasn't hurt them, but that's been a little issue that's reared its head recently. You saw it
Mm-hmm.
in the series, and he could attribute that to just the pace of the game. So there will be turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
But even game one, they had an issue early in the game, and they kind of calmed it down as the game went on. But I do think that that's something they have to keep in check. As always, you keep the turnovers in check, you stand a better chance. I also think that, of course, as not even going to bring up the 40 plus threes again because that's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that they have to um, get Jalen and Jason downhill a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they did it in the third quarter when things started to get a little bit sticky, and that's what you want out of your best players for them to, you know, go get a bucket or at least try to stem the tide and change the flow of the game. But I do think they need to get them downhill a bit more paint touches for Jason as well, because that will also bring some more foul attempts because that's where most of his free throw attempts come from out of the post. I do think that he did get fouled, but that's what game's over. He did get fouled on a couple of those guys, but I do think that if you want to, get him a little bit, get him going a bit more, you have to get him some more post touches, especially there's outside of PJ, all the other guys who are guarding him, they're quote unquote smaller than him, not only in size but in strength. So I do think you have to get some more mismatches for him in the post. So I would say all in all, the keys to the game: be committed to defense because we do know that they are arguably the best defensive team, numbers aside, because they were second in the league. But when they are on a string, you can argue that they're better than Minnesota because there isn't the only person you can really try to exploit is Chris Stabs, and they do a good job of protecting him when he's out there. So I do think defense, as much as they're such an efficient offense, defense is still their calling card. That's why we talk about this all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
always focus on how they're defending because that will tell me if they're serious about the game or not. So I will just sum it up as this: how locked in they are on defense, how engaged they are, because you know how engaged they are on defense, rebounding, because with all the team is set up, it has to be rebounding by committee. So
Mm-hmm.
defense rebounding and diversifying the offense a bit more. I mean, yeah, they'll get their 43s up. That's what they want to do. But continue what they've been doing since the All-Star break, which is a lot more paint touches, uptick in the post touches for Kristaps,
Mm-hmm.
for Drew as well. Not just Tatum and Kristaps, because they're always getting their post touches. But get Drew some mismatches on Kyrie if the opportunity presents itself. Even Jalen, so just try to diversify the offense a bit more. So I would just say those are the three things: diversity on offense, rebounding, defense.
All right, so we'll move on. We're gonna talk about Caitlin, but a very unpopular opinion. I
Uh-huh.
believe I believe the Mavs with the same players what them have now.
Hmm.
I believe that the Mavs would have also benefited from having Grant Williams on this team right now. I think he would have been a great addition for them right now.
And
But
let me tell you why. Because he's more willing to shoot those above the break threes.
mhm.
Even though Grant is better from the corners, Grant will shoot those above the break threes. You give those to Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ, the first thing in their head is, oh, let me crack this off a dribble and try to get a mid-range pull-up or try to get all the way to the rim. Sometimes the best shot is the first shot, the first
Absolutely.
read. Yeah,
Yep.
get the ball, put it up. Even if you think you shouldn't be taking it, sometimes that's better. That's a better shot than trying to make something after you get something off of nothing after you get the pass. So I do see where you're coming from by bringing up Grant right there.
I totally agree. So let's talk about Caitlin. Obviously,
Yeah.
huge, huge sensation. Joined the WNBA, playing for the Indiana Fever. I
Mhm.
think they're 3-9 right now.
11, 3 and 11, something like that.
I
Let me
think they're
double
three
check.
and nine or 3-10, something like that.
Yeah.
Regardless, right? They've won 3 games. They announced the Olympic squad, and she has been left out of the Olympic squad.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Do you think that the omission was correct? Do you think that she should have been added? Why or why not?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you were right about the 3 and 9. The omission actually didn't surprise me. As someone who's gotten back into following the WNBA the last 3, 4 years, I used to follow it, years ago, but I was really just a Maya Moore fan. So when Maya stepped away for her personal reasons, I kind of stepped back a bit too until I was like, let me start to follow it a bit more. So after following it a bit more, it actually doesn't surprise me one bit. I mean, who she was in college, great college player. You could argue that individually, she's the best college player pound for pound without even getting into the accolades and the
Mhm.
titles and stuff like that. But, looking at this roster right here, I actually had it pulled up. But I'm looking at this roster and I don't see where she fits in. Like, that's just the honest truth. She's a rookie. She's still finding her footing in the league. I do feel
Yeah.
like she will be a great player in the league one day, but with how quickly the Olympics is coming after her inception into the league, it's not, you know, looking at the guards on this list, Kelsey Plum, you're going to pick Kelsey Plum, Jewel Lloyd, Chelsea Gray. I don't, I just don't see where she's
Yeah.
fitting in.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And listen, and I think that is one of the things that is really have Caitlyn getting so much flack, because I think that the media try to push her on the league and it's like, okay, this is somebody who support, we're 100% behind her, so everything that she wants she's supposed to get, right? And again, the second greatest basketball player in the world, Michael Jordan, ever, right? The second greatest player. He even when he came in, even when he came in as a rookie, it wasn't easy for him. He had the trials and tribulations. He had to go through it. So again, listen, I understand, and I think yesterday the game at the pick against the Washington Mystics, it was 20,000 people, the most in 17 years, and all of that. And listen,
Yeah.
she is box office. Obviously, this is my view. I think she benefited from coming in the WNBA slash college basketball at the perfect time. What does at the perfect time look like? Okay, at the time when they're saying, why are we not paying the WNBA any attention? One. Two, they start to make Sabrina and Steph Curry 3-point shooting. Three, 3-point shooting has now taken over the whole world, and that is exactly what she does.
Yeah.
So her timing is just perfect. That she, because obviously, in like an Angel Reese, I think Angel Reese is a good baller, but her game is not as sexy as a Caitlin Clark.
As with
Even
most post players,
even the South Carolina girls, their games are not as sexy as a Caitlin. People want to go anti threes. They want to see you pull up from the logo. They want to see you rock somebody 2 times and pull up. That's what's exciting. So I think that she came in at just the perfect time, and then the league and the media just rally around her. But at some point in time, we have to ease her into the team, man. Okay, I think if she had went to the Olympics, you'd hear some fight go on, something go on, because I think that other players feel slighted because they have been doing this and they haven't gotten recognition.
And also, like people are arguing, oh, she should have gone, and then all right, cool, you bring her on the plane. When she's not starting or playing much minutes, you're gonna be like, oh, why is she starting and playing more? So it kind of feels like it's like you said, they want to handle everything, and that's my issue with the people who staunchly support her and also the media. You can acknowledge her ability and her accomplishments to this point. And even if you want to go and project how she will do in the long term, you can do all of that without disrespecting, her her platform, so to speak, who she's playing against, without wanting to handle everything. Like you can't prop her up, and then when she gets into a little bit of trouble, be not winning or getting, the league being a bit more physical, and you thought it was because you weren't watching the league before, and
Absolutely.
they want the cuddler. You can't have it both ways. And people might be like, oh yeah, our game is what's drawing people for the most part. You have to absolutely agree to that. But you have fresh eyes on the game, so to speak. You have to spread it out. Like, all right, this player brings me in, but hey, look at this player over here has been doing it for couple years couple years. Or someone like even though they will hate Diana Taurasi for how she is, what she's doing at 41, you can't ignore it.
Can't ignore.
You can't ignore it. Look at what Asia Wilson is doing.
Can't
She,
ignore it.
what third on course for a third MVP this season, career highs in points, rebounds, etc.
Yeah.
Like use the added focus on the league. Use the new the added interest, the influx of interest rather,
Yep.
to shine the light. Because if you're just going to use it on just one player, it's not. It's yes, it will help to push the league forward, but it's not sustainable. People will talk about, oh, that's what they did with MJ or even Bird or even Magic, etc. Yes, you will have people who are faces of the league or who the public recognize a bit more, but you can't just pin it on one person or two or three. You have to spread it out. If that's the case, someone's arguing that's what they did. I'm like, if that's the case, why hasn't the NBA not been affected? If a player retires, you move on. That's
Exactly.
Someone said this. I don't remember which player said it. Former player. When you leave, no one cares. It sounds cold, but the fact of the matter is, no one cares. The only reason why MJ is talked about as much as he is not even because of him being the greatest. It's because they have someone to compare him to in LeBron.
Second greatest.
If LeBron wasn't there for him to be compared to, do you think we'll be talking about MJ as frequently as we do? No. You think about look at Tim Duncan, for instance. Yes, that wasn't his demeanor to be out there in the public, but based on his accolades and stuff like that, how often do you talk about him? Would we be talking about Shaq and Chuck as great as they were, especially Shaq? Would we be talking about them as much if they weren't on TV?
Well, we're about to see what they're going to know,
Well,
because when they're
yeah,
gone, if they're not
yeah,
on TV, then we'll really see,
yeah.
how much we talk about them. But um, we'll wrap it up. I'll stop right here. So now I want to do
Hmm.
about 45 minutes, and we
Yeah.
reach about 45. Depending on availability tomorrow, and depending on who win. You know, might do another show tomorrow because
All right.
Celtics go up 2-0. Nobody expect a show, boss. But you know, definitely respect and you know for everybody who was watching, you know, please subscribe, like, share, and you know, respect again, Jenna. We'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah, man, definitely. Bless up. All right.